In the very beginning, the book of Genesis opens a mystery so profound that for centuries, scholars, theologians, and seekers alike have overlooked its true depth. Hidden in plain sight, the Bible tells a story of humanity that we've been reading all wrong. What if the creation story in Genesis isn't the same story told twice, but two vastly different accounts of human origins? Did God create two types of humans? One divine, spiritual, and eternal, and the other earthly, bound to dust. This is the question that has been shrouded in secrecy, quietly embedded within the verses of Genesis. Why has this truth been hidden for so long? Is there something beneath the surface that has been deliberately concealed, waiting for us to unearth it? Could it be that the story we thought we knew about Adam and Eve is actually about two distinct natures, spiritual beings created in divine light and physical beings made from earthly dust? The answer to this mystery is not just theological, it's deeply personal. It's about you. It's about the divine pull you feel when you know deep within your soul that you were made for something greater, something beyond the confines of earthly struggles. In this video, you will discover the hidden secrets of Genesis. We will explore the creation of humanity through two separate lenses: the spiritual humanity of Genesis 1, created by the voice of Elohim, and the physical humanity of Genesis 2, formed from the dust by Yahweh Elohim. These two creations, these two natures, intertwine and collide to form the tension we all experience between our divine calling and our earthly struggles. You will learn why we, as humans, constantly feel torn between two worlds and how to embrace both. Get ready to dive deep into the mystery of Genesis as we unveil truths that have been buried for centuries. What if the duality of our creation is the key to understanding not only the past, but also the purpose of our lives today? We'll reveal the hidden wisdom of the Bible, showing you how your origin, both light and dust, shapes who you are meant to become. Don't just watch, reflect, engage, and share your thoughts. Could your struggles be tied to this ancient duality? Share your reflections in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe as we continue this spiritual journey together. This is not just about ancient texts. This is about your life, your identity, and your divine calling. In Genesis chapter 1, the creation of humanity is described in a way that speaks to our deepest spiritual identity. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Genesis chapter 1:27. This creation isn't about the molding of clay or the shaping of bodies. It's about something far more profound. Humanity, in this moment, is brought into existence by the very voice of God. There is no dust, no rib, no garden, just a declaration, a spiritual act of creation that does not need tools, hands, or earthly materials. It is a creation from light, from divine intention, not bound by the constraints of the physical realm. Imagine for a moment that this creation is not about the human body, but about the essence of the soul, the divine imprint of God himself. This humanity is not yet confined to the earth. It is a collective of spiritual beings who carry within them the image of Elohim, the divine plurality that encompasses the fullness of God's being. This is the spiritual humanity that existed before the first physical human was ever formed. In the days when God spoke the universe into being, there were no physical beings, no dust to be shaped or bodies to be breathed into. Yet there was humanity in the mind of God. The spiritual beings created in his image were designed to carry divine light, to walk in divine purpose, not limited to the Garden of Eden or the confines of earth. These were beings with a higher calling, imbued with a divine mandate. Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it. Genesis chapter 1:28. This wasn't just a mission for a small garden. It was a cosmic, expansive calling to fill the earth with beings who would reflect God's image in every corner of the world. But here's the mystery. If these spiritual beings were created in God's image, what happened next? Why does Genesis 2 tell a different story? Why does it introduce dust, breath, a rib, and a garden? If the first humans were spiritual, where did the physical humans come from? It's a question that has puzzled theologians for centuries. Could it be that there was a divine intention to create not just a spiritual humanity, but also a physical one that would be tested, one that would fall, yet one that would be chosen for a redemptive purpose? This tension between our spiritual calling and our earthly nature is one we feel even today. How often have you felt that pull between something higher, your purpose, your calling, and the weight of earthly struggles? Maybe you've looked at the stars, felt that yearning deep within, and wondered if you were meant for something more, something beyond this world. Perhaps you've sensed that divine spark within you, yet struggled with the weight of your physical existence. The creation story in Genesis is a mirror to that inner tension. It speaks not only to where we came from, but to who we are now. This tension between the light of divine creation and the dust of the earth is something we experience daily. We are spiritual beings, created with a higher calling, yet we live in physical bodies, bound by time and space. Our struggle is not just about survival. It's about reconciling the two natures within us, the divine light we were born with, and the earthly dust we carry. And just as the first creation story speaks to our spiritual essence, the second story, found in Genesis 2, speaks to our physical reality and the journey we must undertake in this life. When God creates Adam in Genesis chapter 2, the scene changes dramatically. Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Genesis 2:7. This is a deeply personal moment, a moment of intimacy, where the Creator bends down, forms man from the dust, and breathes life into him. The first creation was a declaration from afar, but the second creation is a communion from within. God doesn't just speak humanity into being, He shapes it with His hands, breathes life into it with His own breath. This is a Creator who is near, a God who desires not only to create but to commune with His creation. In this moment, the human being is not just a spiritual entity, but a physical one, bound to the earth. Adam is placed in the Garden of Eden, a perfect, beautiful place, but also a place of testing. Unlike the spiritual humanity of Genesis 1, which was given a global mandate, the physical humanity of Genesis 2 is given a specific role: to tend to the garden, to cultivate the earth. Adam's mission is not to conquer the world, but to keep and care for it. This is a different kind of purpose, a more grounded, tangible mission. It's not just about ruling, it's about stewardship, about nurturing, about tending to what has been entrusted to you. And here's where the tension between our spiritual nature and our physical existence becomes even more apparent. Adam's story isn't just about being formed from dust. It's about being placed in a garden, a confined space where choices are made and consequences follow. This is where the true test of humanity begins. It's not just about whether we were made of light or dust, but how we choose to live with both. God gives Adam the choice to obey or to disobey. This is where the heart of the story lies, the ability to choose. It is in our choices that we embody both the divine and the earthly. It is through the tension of choosing between our higher calling and our earthly desires that we discover who we truly are. The story of Adam and Eve is not just about a fall, it's about the possibility of redemption. It's about the journey from dust to light, from sin to grace, from separation to communion. As we journey through the pages of Genesis, we see that this is not just the story of two people in a garden, It's the story of us all. We are all Adam and Eve, created with a divine spark, yet bound to this earth. We all face the tension between our higher calling and our earthly nature. We all wrestle with the question of who we are and what we were made for. But the story doesn't end with the fall. In fact, the fall is just the beginning. Because even in our mistakes, even in our brokenness, there is grace. God doesn't discard us. He covers us, He protects us, and He sends us out with a purpose. And so we learn this lesson. We are not just bodies, we are souls. We are not just dust, we are divine light. Our mission is not to simply survive in this world, but to bring our higher calling into our earthly existence, to live out our divine purpose even in the midst of our struggles. The story of Genesis calls us to embrace both parts of who we are, to honor the divine light within us, and to care for the dust of this earth. Both are necessary. Both are sacred. As we move forward in life, remember this. You are more than your physical struggles. You are more than the dust that you see. You are a divine creation, made in the image of Elohim, called to reflect His light in the world. And though you may walk through seasons of difficulty, know that you are never alone. The Creator who formed you from dust still breathes life into you, still walks with you, and still calls you to fulfill your purpose. Your journey is not just about overcoming the struggles of this world, it is about reconciling the light and dust within you, and walking with God as you fulfill your divine calling. Cain's fear of being killed after murdering his brother Abel is one of the most intriguing and mysterious moments in the Bible. Cain, marked by God for his sin, says, "Whoever finds me will kill me." Genesis 4:14. But here's the mystery. If only 4 people existed on earth at this point, Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, who was Cain afraid of? Why would he be worried about being killed by someone else? This is a question that has puzzled many for centuries, and yet the answer might be simpler than we think. What if Cain wasn't just afraid of Adam, Eve, or Abel, but rather of others, people who existed beyond the immediate family? Could it be that Cain was not the first human to walk the earth after all? Was there another lineage of people born from the spiritual humanity of Genesis 1 who were already populating the earth? Could this mysterious group, created in the image of Elohim, be the answer to Cain's fear? This idea opens a door to a much deeper mystery. The possibility that 2 different types of humans were created in Genesis, one spiritual and one physical. The first creation, described in Genesis 1, is a creation of spiritual beings, created from the light of God. These beings, created in the image of Elohim, were destined to carry God's divine mandate to fill and subdue the earth. The second creation, described in Genesis chapter 2, is a creation of physical beings, humans made from the dust of the earth, given breath by Yahweh Elohim, and placed in a garden to care for it. These 2 creations, these 2 lineages, were destined to meet and collide in ways that we are only beginning to understand. Cain's fear of being killed by others could be seen as a sign that the spiritual humanity of Genesis 1 was already present on earth, living and multiplying, while Adam and Eve's physical descendants were just beginning to form their own family. This raises another question. If there were 2 lineages, one spiritual and one physical, what happened to the first humanity created in Genesis 1? Did they simply fade away? Or did they intermingle with the descendants of Adam and Eve, blending together to form the diverse humanity we see today? Perhaps this tension between the spiritual and physical lineages is more than just a theological concept. It's a reflection of the dual nature of every human being. We are all torn between 2 worlds, the divine calling within us and the earthly struggles we face. It's the tension between our higher nature, the part of us that longs for purpose, meaning, and connection with the divine, and our lower nature, the part of us that is bound to the struggles of this world. This tension is what makes us human. It's what makes our journey so difficult, and yet so beautiful. The story of Cain and Abel isn't just about two brothers. It's about the collision between two natures, two worlds. Cain's fear, his murder of Abel, and his eventual exile all reflect the tension between these two lineages. The physical humanity of Adam and Eve is bound to the earth, subject to the consequences of sin, while the spiritual humanity created in Genesis chapter 1 seems to represent a higher calling, a divine purpose that has yet to be fully realized. But this is not just a story of division or conflict. This is a story of redemption. Even in the midst of Cain's sin and exile, God places a mark on him to protect him. Then the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain, so that no one who found him would kill him. Genesis 4:15. This mark is not a punishment, it's a protection. Even in the midst of Cain's failure, God doesn't abandon him. Instead, he marks him, ensuring that his life still has purpose. God's grace is extended even to those who fall, even to those who make mistakes. This is the heart of redemption, the belief that no matter how far we fall, we are not beyond God's reach. Cain's story is a reminder that our failures do not define us. Even when we make mistakes, even when we fall short of our potential, God does not discard us. Instead, He marks us, protects us, and gives us a chance to fulfill our purpose. The mark on Cain is not a symbol of shame, but a sign of God's mercy, a mercy that is available to all of us. No matter what mistakes we've made, no matter how far we feel from God, His grace is always available. Cain's exile is not the end of his story, it's the beginning of his journey. And just like Cain, we are all on a journey of redemption, a journey that brings us closer to our true purpose, the purpose for which we were created. The idea of two creations, two lineages, one spiritual and one physical, speaks to the duality within each of us. We are all torn between our higher calling and our earthly nature. We are all made in the image of Elohim, yet we are also bound to the dust of the earth. This tension is not something to be feared or avoided, it is something to be embraced. It is in this tension that we find our purpose. It is in this tension that we grow, learn, and ultimately fulfill the divine calling that has been placed within us. The story of Cain and Abel challenges us to confront the tension between our spiritual and physical natures. It asks us to examine the ways in which we live out our higher calling and our earthly struggles. It asks us to consider how we can reconcile the divine light within us with the dust that we are made of. And it reminds us that, no matter how far we fall, God's grace is always there to mark us, protect us, and guide us back to our true purpose. As we move forward in this journey of life, let us remember that we are more than just physical beings. We are spiritual beings, created in the image of Elohim, and called to reflect His light in the world. Our mission is not just to survive, but to live with purpose, to embrace both our higher calling and our earthly struggles, and to fulfill the divine mandate that has been placed upon us. Just as Cain's story is not the end, neither is ours. Our journey is just beginning, and with each step, we are closer to fulfilling our true purpose. The two names of God, Elohim and Yahweh Elohim, reveal a profound truth about the Creator's nature. In Genesis 1, God is known as Elohim, the majestic, distant Creator who speaks the universe into existence. Elohim is the God of light, order, and creation, whose voice commands the heavens and the earth. Elohim is transcendent, beyond comprehension, a force that shapes galaxies with a mere word. But in Genesis 2, the name changes. God is now Yahweh Elohim, the Lord God. This change in name signifies a shift from the distant creator to a personal, relational God who intimately forms Adam from the dust, breathes life into him, and walks with him in the garden. Why this change in names? Why would the same God be known as Elohim in one chapter and Yahweh Elohim in the next? The answer lies in the dual nature of God, the tension between his transcendence and immanence. Elohim represents the divine majesty and creative power, while Yahweh represents the personal, intimate aspect of God. Elohim speaks from afar, declaring the universe into being. Yahweh Elohim comes close, kneeling down to shape humanity with his hands, breathing life into it with his own breath. This tension between the distant Creator and the intimate Lord is the essence of God's nature and his relationship with humanity. But this duality is not just about God, it's about us. Just as God is both transcendent and immanent, so are we. We are both spiritual and physical, divine and earthly, light and dust. And it is in this tension that we find our true identity. We are called to reflect the image of Elohim, to carry the divine light within us, while also embracing the reality of our earthly existence. Our lives are a balance between the spiritual and the physical, between the divine calling we feel deep within and the earthly struggles we face on a daily basis. In Genesis, God shows us that both aspects of our nature are sacred. We are not just bodies to be used and discarded, we are souls, created in God's image, with a divine purpose. And even when we struggle, even when we fall, God's grace is always available to us. Just as Elohim created humanity from light, Yahweh Elohim forms us from dust, and both are necessary to fulfill our divine purpose. We are not just one or the other, we are both. And in this tension, we find our calling, our purpose, and our redemption. In Genesis 3, we encounter the moment when everything changes, the fall of man. Adam and Eve, created in divine perfection, are placed in a garden with everything they need. They were made to walk with God, to experience the fullness of his creation, and to live in harmony with him and each other. But then, the serpent enters, whispering lies into their hearts, convincing them to question God's goodness and his command. Did God really say? Genesis 3:1. And just like that, humanity's story takes a turn. The fall was not just about eating fruit, it was about disobedience. It was about choosing to trust the voice of the serpent over the voice of God. It was about choosing self over surrender, knowledge over trust, independence over relationship. The consequences were immediate. They felt shame, fear, and the burden of separation from God. In their disobedience, they not only broke God's command, but also severed the intimate relationship they had with their Creator. Their actions marked the beginning of humanity's struggle, the tension between the divine calling within and the earthly reality of sin and brokenness. But here's the beauty. The story doesn't end in the garden. God could have abandoned them in their sin, but instead, he covers them. The Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. Genesis 3:21. In the midst of their shame, God provides. In the midst of their failure, he gives them grace. He doesn't leave them naked and exposed. He clothes them, not to hide their sin, but to protect them. He marks them with his mercy. Even in their brokenness, God is present, offering redemption, offering a way forward. The fall reminds us of the deep truth that no matter how far we fall, We are not beyond God's reach. We are never too far gone to be covered by His grace. The same grace that covered Adam and Eve in the garden is the grace that covers us today. No matter how much dust we may feel is weighing us down, no matter how deep our failures, God is still the one who breathes life into us. He is still the one who calls us to rise again, to fulfill the divine calling He has placed on our lives. Just as Adam and Eve's story didn't end in the garden, neither does ours. The fall wasn't the final chapter. It was the beginning of a new journey, a journey of redemption. Adam and Eve were not abandoned in their exile, they were given purpose. They were sent out, not to wander aimlessly, but to fulfill the mandate given to them in Genesis chapter 1, to fill the earth, to multiply, to subdue it. And though their journey was filled with hardship, they were not left alone. God continued to be with them, guiding them through their struggles, just as He is with us today. In our own lives, we often find ourselves in moments of failure, regret, or shame. We stumble, we fall, and we question if we'll ever be able to rise again. But the story of Adam and Eve teaches us that even in our brokenness, God's grace is more than enough. He does not discard us for our failures. Instead, He takes our brokenness and forms it into something beautiful. He breathes life back into us. He gives us a new chance to fulfill His purpose for our lives. This is the power of redemption. It is not just about returning to the garden, but about moving forward in grace, knowing that God's plan for us has not changed. The tension between our spiritual calling and our earthly struggles is not something to fear. It is something to embrace. It is through this tension that we grow, that we learn, and that we fulfill the divine calling placed upon our lives. Just as Adam and Eve were sent out with purpose, so too are we sent out into the world with purpose. Our journey is not one of perfection, but of progress. It is not about getting everything right. It's about trusting that God will guide us through our failures and help us rise again. And so, just as the fall was not the end of Adam and Eve's story, neither is it the end of ours. We may fall, we may fail, but God's grace is always there to catch us, to cover us, and to call us forward. The story of Genesis reminds us that we are both spiritual and physical, divine and earthly. We are made in the image of Elohim, yet formed from the dust. We carry the light of God within us, but we also wrestle with our human nature. And it is in this tension that we find our true purpose. It is in this tension that we learn to walk with God, to trust in His grace, and to fulfill the mission He has given us. As we continue our journey, let us remember that we are never beyond redemption. Our falls do not define us. It is through our failures that God's grace shines the brightest. Just as Adam and Eve were not abandoned in their sin, neither are we. God is with us, guiding us, covering us, and calling us to rise again. In Genesis, we see not only the creation of humanity, but the beginning of a beautiful, redemptive story. A story that isn't about perfection, but about grace. A story that isn't about getting everything right, but about trusting that God will guide us through every struggle, every failure, and every victory. This is the story of our lives, a story of divine purpose and human struggle, a story of redemption and grace. Cain, the firstborn of Adam and Eve, is often seen as the archetype of humanity's brokenness. His story is one of jealousy, anger, and murder. Yet even in his darkest moment, God offers him grace. After Cain kills Abel and is marked by God for his sin, he goes out into the wilderness, a wanderer cast out from the family. But even in exile, God does not leave him. The Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. Genesis 4:15. This mark is a symbol of God's mercy, a reminder that no matter how far we stray, God still desires to protect and redeem us. Cain's journey is a reflection of our own. We all have moments when we feel like we are wandering in the wilderness, lost and alone. We all have moments when we feel like we are beyond redemption, beyond the reach of God's grace. But the story of Cain teaches us that even in our sin, God's mercy is still available to us. He does not abandon us when we fall. Instead, he marks us with his grace, ensuring that even in our brokenness, we are protected and loved. Cain's story is a reminder that God is not just the God of perfection, but the God of redemption. He does not wait for us to be perfect before he extends his grace. Instead, he meets us in our brokenness, offering us a chance to rise again. The mark on Cain is not a punishment, it is a sign of God's love and protection. And just as Cain's story didn't end in exile, neither does ours. No matter how far we fall, God is always there to mark us, protect us, and call us forward into the redemption he has prepared for us. Cain's journey is one of transformation. It begins with sin, but it ends with grace. It begins with brokenness, but it ends with purpose. And just like Cain, we are all on a journey of transformation, a journey that begins with grace and ends with redemption. The fall is not the end of our story. It is just the beginning of a beautiful journey with God, a journey that will lead us to discover our true purpose, our true calling, and the divine grace that covers us all. So just as Cain was marked by God's grace, so are we. We are not defined by our failures, but by the redemption that is available to us through God's grace. We are not abandoned in our sin, but covered by his love. And just as Cain's journey didn't end in exile, neither will ours. We are all on a journey of redemption, a journey that leads us back to our true purpose and divine calling. As we come to the close of this journey through Genesis, we are left with more than just the echoes of an ancient story. The creation narrative, from the divine light of Genesis 1 to the dust of Genesis 2, tells a story that transcends time. It speaks not just to the beginning of humanity, but to the heart of who we are and why we are here. It's a story of creation, fall, and redemption, a story that still shapes our lives today. You see, Genesis was never meant to be just a distant historical account. It was always meant to be a mirror, reflecting the dual nature of every person. We are both spiritual beings, created in the image of Elohim, and earthly beings formed from the dust. We carry within us the divine light of creation, yet we wrestle daily with the weight of our human existence. And in this tension lies our story, our struggle to reconcile the two natures within us, to honor both the divine calling and the earthly reality that we face. But here's the beauty. This story doesn't end with our fall. It doesn't end with our mistakes or our shortcomings. The fall of Adam and Eve was not the end of their purpose. It was the beginning of their journey toward redemption. And the same is true for us. We are not defined by our failures, but by the grace that calls us to rise again. Just as God marked Cain with protection, he marks us with his grace, ensuring that even in our brokenness we are not abandoned. We are not beyond redemption. If you've ever felt torn between your higher calling and your earthly struggles, between the divine light within you and the weight of the world pressing down on you, know that you are not alone. This tension is part of the human experience, and it is a divine invitation to seek the balance, to walk the journey, and to fulfill the purpose God has placed within you. The story of Genesis is your story, and it's a story of hope. Even in the midst of our brokenness, there is a way forward, a way of grace, love, and redemption. And as we navigate this journey, we must remember that God does not call us to perfection. He calls us to trust in his grace. He calls us to embrace both our light and our dust, to live in the tension between the two, and to allow his breath of life to continually renew us. When we fall, he doesn't discard us. He lifts us up. And in this we find our true purpose, not in perfection, but in redemption. The journey of Cain, Adam, Eve, and even us is a journey that continues. We are all on a path of growth, transformation, and discovery. And while the road may be filled with struggles and challenges, it is also filled with the hope of redemption, the promise of grace, and the power of God's presence in our lives. If this video has touched your soul, if it has helped you find light in the midst of darkness, or if it has reminded you of your divine calling, I invite you to support this journey with me. Your encouragement, your support, even in the smallest ways, helps me continue to create videos that share the Word of God and inspire others on their own paths of healing and redemption. Every like, every comment, every subscription is a small but invaluable contribution to this mission. I am deeply grateful for your support and your presence on this journey. Together we can continue to explore the mysteries of the Bible, uncovering the hidden truths that speak to our hearts and souls. If you feel this message has resonated with you, please like, share, and comment below. Your voice matters, and your story matters. Let's continue to walk this path of grace and light together, finding hope in every step and redemption in every moment. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for sharing this journey, and for helping me continue to bring these messages to life. Your support means more than words can express, and I am honored to walk alongside you on this path of discovery and healing. May we continue to seek the divine light within us and fulfill the purpose we were created for.